Talked about it earlier. Yeah, we already did that.
Please stand.
Yeah, I'll tell you about it.
Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please remain standing for the prayer. Grant us, O Lord, light to our understanding, prudence in our investigating, foresight in our planning, sincerity in our deliberating, the grace to follow truth in our judgment. Help us to be moved in our decision, neither by fear nor by self-interest, and to do our work faithfully. May we respect the authority vested in us, for thou art the source of all authority, and may we use it in our directives for the common good, for thy honor and glory. Amen. Call to order. Roll call, please.
Mr. Joyce. Mrs. Joyce.
Here.
Mrs. Hardwick. Mrs. Mara. Mr. Conrad. Mr. Thompson.
Thank you. Okay, opening up with public comment. So anyone who'd like to come, please step up to the podium.
Is the mic on? Did we make sure the mic is on? And if you could please sign in with your name and your address. Thank you.
Okay, and my name is Lynn Kolosinski, 61, Shawendowski. And the reason for my visit this evening is I'd like to know the status of the grant for the sidewalk on Lakeshore Boulevard. What is the status? Where are you with that? Have you applied for that grant?
Mr. O'Leary, should we wait till the very end? Or should they all can should we address it right away?
Can I just say I'll go on with the rest then.
Okay.
Okay. First of all, there would be, even though it is a grant, for every resident in the village of Timberlake, there will be a financial impact. There's going to be either a higher tax, there is going to be something, service will be missed, something will happen because of a sidewalk. I'm curious if any type of input has come from all of the residents. Have you done a survey to find out who wants this sidewalk? And are people in the interior of Timberlake really going to use that sidewalk to justify spending any money on such a project? The other thing is, who's responsible for the maintaining of this sidewalk? Who's going to be out there in the winter shoveling the snow on that sidewalk? Are you going to have your service department? And that would be a forever maintenance fee that the village of Timberlake will have to pay. Or is it going to fall on the people that live on Lakeshore Boulevard that may not want that sidewalk? It is also going to take down trees, which this is Timberlake. It's going to take down trees. It's going to take down landscaping. And all in all, I think it's something that there should either be a vote, there should either, or a survey, something, so you know who wants it, how many people want it. And that's it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay.
Anyone else?
Hi, I'm Jane Shaveco, 14 East Shore. This is regarding ordinance 7/2023. It's about permitting to keep chickens. You know, most of the people in the village didn't even know this was going on to a third reading. I spoke with a lot of people over the last couple of weeks, and a lot of them, their response was, who wants chickens and why, and who already has chickens? But they say if it's going to go, they agree that who are you going to register with? Who's going to follow up every year with the $10 fee? Are you going to have to submit a sketch and a drawing and a survey, such as I did when I got a fence, or you put up a shed? Are there going to be the guidelines with that? Who will enforce that? Also, from the placement, a lot of people believe that the 5 feet is a little short. They were saying more 15, 10 or 15. And also the location of the enclosure. Is it going to be considered the property line fence where these chickens can run throughout the yard? Or is it going to be enforced as a separate enclosure around the chicken coop? Because there is a guideline stating that they have to have at least 10 square feet area for such animals. But that's like a minimum of, is that going to be enforced where it has to be gated around the coop also for other animals? All I know is said there's a lot more important things in Timberlake. One of them was feral cats. We became a feral cat community, and nobody's following up on the care and that of these cats. They went, they got them neutered, spayed, but now it's people's responsibility that they're taking in these feral cats, but they're walking all over the place. And nobody's patrolling that. What are we going to do with chickens? And I hope when you go to the third reading, you'll look at this, because when it went on second reading, nobody said anything. Now, I don't know if I can address the safety director, because it says the mayor, which is, I believe we need to have some patrolling on Lake Shore. People are really starting to speed. I mean, you notice it when you're trying to be out walking, crossing the road, trying to take a left into, waiting for the cars, and people are really going really fast. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to address?
My name is Brett Wassum. I live on Lake Shore. And I'd like to start off by saying that I'm dead against the sidewalk. And also that we're this far along into it and we've never been asked about it or any concerns. Nothing has been said. And I think that's a total failure. And I also like to say if this does go through, any additional costs, that should also get divvied up by all of Timberlake residents. I know that us residents that live on Lake Shore, when we widened it for the bike path, that assessment was put on our taxes for, it was a 10-year prorated thing, which if it's something that's going to benefit all of Timberlake should have to pay for it, all the residents. And also, has anyone even looked at the additional costs? You're going to have all the water meters relocated. Telephone poles are going to be in the way, or you're going to have to take more of people's property. I mean, has anyone actually looked at all these additional costs, all the trees that are in the way? I mean, there's a lot of questions. But it's a total failure that we haven't been involved more in this, because this is going to directly affect, I think everyone that lives here is a Lakeshore resident, and we should be kept in the loop more than people in the back, because it's going to directly affect us. And also, as far as maintenance goes, like Lynn said, is this going to be, it's going to be a lot of maintenance, to plow in the wintertime, because, the salt trucks and everything driving by every 10 minutes, it's not going to be one of those things where you just do it one time a day. You're going to have to do this multiple times, so, there's a lot to look at, and I'm shocked that you guys are this far along and we haven't even been asked anything. It's just been crickets, and that's unacceptable. So you write my name in here. Does anyone have a pen?
Yeah, thank you. Anyone else?
Yes, my name is Bill Jones, and I also live on Lake Shore across from the Dover Apartments. I've been there 53 years. And I'm 82 years old now. I was young when I moved in there, but now when the plows come by, they do my driveway. It's solid ice. My snowblower won't even move. I have to get out there with a pick and shovel. And I'm just imagining what I'm gonna have to do, because I'm gonna have to be responsible for a sidewalk another 50 feet. How am I gonna do that being 82 years old? Not get fined for it? Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, I will address a couple of those right now since it's my time up for public or for basically welfare. Anyway, so as far as the speeding on Lake Shore, I did notice that a lot. And one idea I'm going to present to council and maybe to the chief also is that I noticed that when I'm driving along a lot of streets, or side streets, they have those those speed traps and they have the radar detectors and actually they'll even give tickets out. So I was thinking of getting something like that. At least this way that people post it, will say your speed is this, and then they'll slow down. So that's one idea I had, but the only thing is it'll be the location. I know no one's gonna want it in front of their yard. If we put it by the triangle and they're going west, okay, people aren't gonna see it and they're gonna be flying through before they get to it and they're gonna slow down before they hit Lakeline. If we put it on the other end, like I said, it'll get the other end. So we're probably gonna need one on each end and have to do it where like it's not in front of any residences or houses. So, but we're gonna look at this for a location, but I'm thinking of that's gonna be possibly one idea. As far as the assessment, there will be no assessments for that separate for anyone on Lake Shore. Again, what was happening is this, here's how this all came to being is because I've been going to a lot of NOACA meetings. That's the Northeast Ohio Coordinating Agency. And again, they're supposed to take care of our roads and bridges. Well, when it comes to getting grant money, we're always a small community, we're left out. So I went over there basically asking for money and we need money for this, that, and the other. So one of the things they were doing was they're working about this transit and they're increasing the transit for Lake Tran and so forth for connectivity, it's called. And they're bringing that in. So one day I took the bus, I took Lake Tran downtown to the NOACA meeting and I had to stand along Lake Shore. And the problem is there was no sidewalk there to stand on. I had to stand right on the edge of the road or in the grass. Okay. And it was cold, freezing. I had my coat on. Cars are flying by. They're going more than 35 miles an hour, no doubt. Okay. And it was a very dangerous situation for me to be there. And I went down there and I reported this to NOACA and also to Lake Tran. I said, we've got 4 bus stops on Lakeshore. And I says, there's nowhere for the people to stand or even have access to go to them. I says, if we have a resident that's walking, if they live like I live at the end of Minnewawa, so I had to walk through Timberlake, which is no problem because again, it's a residential road. I don't have to worry about anybody hitting me or going more than 25 miles an hour. But as soon as I got to Lakeshore, like I said, now my life's in danger because these cars are flying by and I've got to stand there at the bus stop. So, and again, if someone wants to walk to the bus stop, how we didn't get to that bus stop? There's nowhere to walk to get on it. So what we did was I was contacting NOACA and basically we have to get on a TIP program first. And in order to do that, you have to qualify with a point system. Well, because we're a small village, we never qualified for any of the points. So what I did was Mr. Conrad and I went to a NOACA meeting one day and then we met with Lake Tran, we met with Ben Capel and the other guys from Lake Tran. And we said, look, and then we also met with ODOT and we said, NOACA is not giving any, they're ignoring us. They're not giving us any help in as far as getting these grants. And we need some kind of a sidewalk for safety on Lakeshore. And also we tied it in with Lake Tran because again, for their stops, they needed something for safety also. So like I said, we went directly to ODOT and we were able to then get them to basically give us a grant for 90% of the cost of to build the project. And so we worked through our engineer to get together a preliminary, he had a preliminary drawing that he did about 10 years ago. So we submitted that in a preliminary drawing to ODOT. And we were able to get that thing and they looked at it and he says, okay, they revised the numbers and this is going to be about $1 million project. And this is out of it, you have to come up with 10% of that. And we'll give to the 90%. So we said, great. And also we have to pay the engineering fees. So then we had a meeting with ODOT and Lake Tran, and Lake Tran then agreed to take care of the 10%. So they agreed that they'll give us 100,000. He committed immediately, and he said he has to go to the board for the rest. So basically, when we're all done with this, okay, the first phase is this year is just to get the application in, and that's all we're doing today is we just want to submit the application. Once we get the application, next year is when we get the funding all in order. And by that time, we'll have all the funding in order from basically from Lake Tran to subsidize that part. And then the third year will be the construction of it, which would be 2025. So basically that was the plan. And it's going to take 3 years to get this thing built. But then again, we have to start somewhere. And no one was ever able to get this far. And again, what we're looking at is real more as a safety issue. We need to put something there to get people access to these bus stops, because that was another thing that Lake Tran was doing. They're improving all their areas anyway. And they were going to hit us next. So basically, we just got to jump at them initially and said, look, can you help us now with this project and tie it in with our project? And that's what they were able to do. So as far as that goes, that's how that all came to be. And again, I have to give a lot of credit to, Mr. Conrad here. He did a phenomenal job, pushing this through and helping me go down there to NOACA, talk to the people, talk to ODOT, and then also talk with Lake Tran and get this all put together. So again, we've been working. I know maybe some of the people on Lake Shore have been in the dark, but we've had a lot of residents that do want the sidewalks also, and when I became mayor 4 years ago, I went along Lakeshore Boulevard, and there were quite a few residents that had asked if we'll ever have sidewalks on Lakeshore. And I know there's some that are opposed to it. I get that, but there are also a lot of them that do want them. And again, there's a lot of new families coming in, young families. The one thing they don't like is that if they've got small children, they've got to get in their car if they want to go to the park or they want to go to the beach, instead of getting and just walking on the sidewalk and walking within the village, where everyone that lives in the village can just walk where they want on a side street and be safe. But to walk along Lakeshore Boulevard, like it was mentioned before, there's a lot of traffic and they're flying through there. It's just it's a safety issue is what it is. And then also just for anyone that wants to come to the park, if they want to just come to the park for a sunset, they got to get in their car to drive instead of just being able to walk into the village. So that was a couple of the reasons why, again, I know that I made it a commitment 4 years ago when I ran for mayor that I wanted to try to get sidewalks on Lakeshore, because again, there were more that wanted that didn't at that time when I did my survey of it, when I was knocking on all the doors. Now I plan on going and knocking on everyone's door in Lakeshore again, because I'm up for re-election. But then again, we'll ask them, but I'm sure as far as the maintenance goes, we're not going to require anyone to maintain them, because again, we don't have them now. And really, who's going to really use them in the wintertime? And if someone wants to maintain them, that's great, but they are going to be located behind the telephone pole. So there would be no trees. Maybe a couple may have to come down, but if they do, we'll replace them or relocate them. But for the most part, they'll be right behind the telephone pole, but still be inside the right of way. And it's not going to be a real wide one. It's just going to be a regular 4-foot sidewalk. So again, it's just basically a sidewalk, not a bike trail. When they come into the village, they're going to curve into the village, not go straight, so that if someone is driving along, they can't just get in it. You have to basically come into the village with it or come out. So pretty much it's going to be almost pretty much for village use only, for the ones who live on Lakeshore, the ones who want to walk into the village or walk from the village to a house on Lakeshore. It's for that. So pretty much so we're not going to require that. And again, if we have to, we can have our service department. I mean, it's not much to take care of the plowing. I mean, when we do get the snow, I mean, we have, again, great service guys. We have a gator that we can put a plow on. It wouldn't take much to plow that if we had to plow. But then again, I don't see we're going to have a big problem with that in the wintertime, because, we're not going to require it, and most people don't use it anyway. And if they do, like I said, at least it's better they're walking away from the side of the road than walking right on the edge of the road.
Where will the bus stop then be? And right in front of it?
The walks will be behind the bus stops right now, wherever the bus stops are located, so that people can walk to the walk and then stand on that sidewalk while they're waiting for the bus.
I got another question. People live on Lakeshore. It doesn't bother people who live back in the village. But it's bad enough to sell you a house there now. Like I've been there 50 years back then, there wasn't no operation hall, over apartments, nothing. It wasn't that bad. But now with all the traffic and all the buildings stuff around, how much you think that if they take 10 or 15 feet from our property, how much you think it's going to bring down the value of our homes?
We're not taking anything, we're just gonna put a walk right there in its place. I mean, it's
So we possibly. You got that like little white line about back lane. My mailbox is right there, and it's a drainage ditch. There's no way you can put a sidewalk.
the engineer worked that out. What is your address?
340 Fourth Wade, Lake Shore.
Okay,
Mayor?
yes, go ahead, please.
So I appreciate everyone coming up and we do appreciate the comments and the feedback. I guess the point about not surveying everyone on Lake Shore. It was done in a previous administration. I live next to a former councilman, Ken Zoller, and a long time ago, he said that when they were talking about it, when the streets were getting widened. So I don't know how long ago that was.
2016, I think that actually happened. But
Yeah.
They were working on that.
2016, it was brought up. Right, we don't have a record of it because we couldn't find it, but that was the information I was given. And also for 2 years, I've been on council talking about sidewalks, and it's in the Timberlake Times. I pretty much every meeting, I think I brought it up, and I solicited feedback 5 months ago, 6 months ago, and we had one Lakeshore resident that came and put his objections into it on the basis of has a hard time shoveling his driveway already and having to shovel the sidewalk. Now, like the mayor stated, most communities, I grew up in Mentor, we all had sidewalks. There are ordinances in those cities about shoveling sidewalks, but no one actually does. When you get a big storm, we're worried about getting the road safe and getting your driveway safe, right? And how many big storms a year do we get? 2 or 3? And a lot of the rest of it's little dustings. And in the wintertime, most people aren't going to be out walking the sidewalks from Lakeshore. Yes. No, it's on a right of way, which is village property, right up 25 feet from the middle of the road, or the end of the road is owned by the village. No, it's just like if your water main breaks right there, you're not responsible for it. It's a public property, right? So, and if someone gets hurt on it, I don't know, I'd have to defer to legal counsel on that if there's liability on a sidewalk. I don't believe it is. I think it's a use at your own risk, just like any sidewalk.
What someone will sue over and what they can recover under are two different things. And so is it possible someone could sue under it, but under a normal accumulation of snow, you're not going to have that kind of liability.
Okay. Yeah. And so like I said, like we've talked about it, we've asked for feedback. Now I did not go door to door on Lakeshore, and that's because I would have had to go drive a house, drive to the next house, drive to the next house, drive to the next house. Because anyone that lives on, I live on Lakeshore, and trash cans have been hit, right? So if someone was walking on that widened bike path, as it's called, they would have been killed, right? So it is a huge safety liability, and not to mention, to get to the village means all of us on Lakeshore, unless you feel safe and comfortable walking on that, which most don't. It is dangerous. Cars are going faster than they should. You have to get in your car and drive back here. And some of us have young kids. More kids are coming. People with dogs are moving into Lakeshore. There's been a few houses sold on, at least one that I know of, and another one on the corner of Lakeshore and Mini Wawa that just moved into the village. So people are coming. People are still buying houses on Lakeshore, and in my mind, if you have a sidewalk, that only adds value to your property, because it is now safer and you have access to all the beautiful amenities that we do have here on Lakeshore. And as the mayor stated, the assessment, there will be no assessment. We will not raise taxes over this. That I'm a no on
So
that.
people inside the village won't be paying.
No, that's the end goal. And we've worked very hard at limiting the financial responsibility on the village. And our goal is to get it to 0. And like the mayor said, we have a verbal agreement with Ben Capel, who could give us $75,000 and $25,000 increments without board approval, and is willing to go to the Lake Tram Board for approval. Now, they have federal funds in the area of $1 million each year that they have to spend on improving safety on bus stops and improving the beautification of bus stops. They have to spend that. It's earmarked from the federal government. They use it or they lose it. First come, first serve. And we were the first ones there to ask them. So we have a very good shot at him being able to get that money.
But not a guarantee.
Nothing is guaranteed. I'm not going to count my chickens before they hatch. We'll say what we're at right now.
Don't talk about chickens.
Yeah, sorry. Sore subject.
Joke.
So we have all of that in place, all that framework over 2 years of hard work on it. Now, the other thing about it is the first period of it, fiscal year 2024 is the first stage. That is the design and planning, where an ODOT engineer comes out, draws up the sketches, does all the designing, does all the planning. That part is covered verbally by Ben, or verbally, and he said he would give us that money. The first part's covered. the sidewalk, the construction and the engineering and inspection at the end does not come till fiscal year 2026. So that's give or take 3 years of planning and time to look at all the drawings, put our input into the drawings. No, we don't want it like this. We want it like this, and make it better. And that's where we're at today. So today, the vote is to apply for the grant. Doesn't mean we'll get the grant. We still have to go, me and the mayor still have to go and go in front of ODOT and pitch the grant and give our spiel and our support for it. But this has been a process. This is something that as a resident of Lakeshore, as seeing people flying down it, seeing kids riding their bikes on, and not my daughter, because I won't let her, but other kids riding their bikes on that little bike path. It is dangerous. And you know, as those cars fly by or come over the white line, I mean, we've all had to go grab our mail or take our trash cans out on there. I always wait till there's no cars and look, you know, but it can be scary and dangerous. So that's the thought process behind it, and upgrading the Lake Trans stops so that they're more accessible to people in the village. You know, there's a girl in the village that is in a wheelchair that is getting of the age now where she can go out on her own and use public transportation. And as it currently sits, there's no access for a wheelchair. Or, you know, she's a friend of my daughter's, or the friends in the village of my daughters that have to play. Thankfully, we can cut through a neighbor's yard, but when it's raining, wet, snowy, well, snowy is off the table, right? Because we're not going to use it in the snow. But when it's wet out there, she has a hard time getting there. So there's reasons, and I know that's just one little nook and cranny of those that live on Lakeshore. But I have talked to my immediate neighbors and people around me, and it's been nothing but shining support. So that's where we stand on it, and that's kind of the color commentary behind how we got there.
Excuse me. This is not discussion, but if you have any other comments,
Come on up.
all right. So can you please approach?
Yeah, come up and state your name.
So we could hear you.
It's got to be on the record.
Yeah, we need it on the tape. Thank you.
Okay, with, you're talking about Lake Tram, and are they going to make those boxes then?
No.
In front of people's homes that have those?
No.
Okay,
Short answer.
and last year, in front of Bill Jones's house, it went all the way over a car, took out his mailbox, went into his hedges, and went straight down the street. I'm sure the police have a report on that. The sidewalk is not going to save a child. They were walking at that time.
Correct.
All right. So you are inviting children to walk on Lakeshore Boulevard. And I want that in there. You're inviting them.
Yeah, but a sidewalk is inherently much safer. I mean, this is a safety grant administered by ODOT. They run the safety calculations, and
We
I
saw-
agree, cars can come flying off the road. Yeah.
We
but-
saw it happen.
No, I understand. I understand. And it's a possibility. Someone also drove through the guardrail at the end of at 91. But a car-
283 is
car-
a state route.
Correct.
That's right.
And this is a state program for state administered sidewalks.
Sidewalk on the south side.
Yes, and that is also, like, people say we don't want sidewalks. That's a Timberlake sidewalk because it's in the right of way as well. So like, there's already a sidewalk on one side and it's safer than what is currently there. It's a safety improvement. Is anything foolproof? No. You mean you could be walking down the village and a car
You're
could come
asking
flying off?
Take on another burden, and it is not safe proof.
Nothing is safety proof in life. And it's not the only burden is it's being installed on, you know, your strip of land that is the right of way of the village of Timberlake. But, you know, we can agree to disagree on that it's safe or not.
Okay, moving on. Anyone else have any other comments or questions? Okay, thank you. All right, moving on. It's one a little good and welfare here. First, I want to talk about, we had our Village Club Parade, and I'd like to thank everybody that helped arrange family fun days. Especially, I would like to thank Cindy Hardwick. She took on a double duty by being the president of the Village Club and also president of Village Council. It is quite an endeavor. She does so much for this village, and as I am mayor, I'm very happy that she's decided to keep the Village Club going. I also understand that the number of people attending the meeting have also become quite promising. I would like to thank Kim Wittersheim, the vice president of the Village Club, Andrea Pollock, Secretary, and Missy Frazier, our new treasurer. I know you've all stepped up, and I especially saw the creativity, organization, sweat, perseverance of Kim, Andrea, and Cindy, and it made it such a fun atmosphere. I was involved in the setup and cleanup, and I'd like to personally thank Brent and Paula Gardner and their grandson Logan for sweating it out the night before the heat. We laboriously set up the tables, put things together, put up structures. We did it as a team with the Village Club officers. Can't thank enough for all those who showed up to help prepare for the next day. I would like to thank also all those who donated their time to make the donation baskets to raffle off. What a success that was. We actually made $1,700 in on that. So get out of the ballpark. Good job. I would also like to thank Laura Lavelle for organizing all the merchandise. I know she made sure that everything was accounted for. The prizes were awarded with accuracy and confirmed with proof before awarding them. And I'm sure I'm missing probably other people that were involved, but all those who were involved, believe me, we weren't forgotten. And again, we had over $3,000 in merchandise that we raffled off. So great job on all those who basically donated all that merchandise. And then the parade, I would like to personally thank good old faithful, our devoted former Miss Timberlake, Mary Beth Germano. Without her, I don't think we would have had such a successful parade. With her hard work and perseverance, she got it done. She did fall that day. She broke her shoulder, which was unfortunate, and she had to leave right when the parade was starting. But again, she had the little choo-choo train. I'm sure all the kids loved it, and she at least got to see that make it into the parade. So that was really great. Anyways, I'm also glad that she's on the mend. So her sacrifice on that day does not go unnoticed. And then also we want to give our love to Frank, and also can't wait to see what we have planned next year. I would also like to thank Jerry Joyce, who donated the hot dogs for Family Days, and Nancy Marr, who donated the buns. I would also like to thank Councilman Kevin Thompson for helping clean up and managing the trash after the party. That was great, helpful. And also like to thank Councilman Ryan Conrad, who cooked on the hot grill, made sure everyone got hot dog on that day. And also I'd like to thank Jeff, who donated the kibasi and added a special treat to the day. Also, many thanks to all those who brought side dishes. There were a lot of side dishes, and they were all really, really delicious. And I'm sure I forgot someone, but I want to sincerely thank, like I said, the Village Club has planned our clam bake, which is September 9th, 2023. There's a flyer that basically you can get online right at our Village Club or on our website. So just tell the neighbors. I'm sure we'll have another great day. So again, thank you to everyone who made our parade and our Family Fun Days a great success. So thank you for all that. You know, the reading and disposition of the minutes. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Mrs. Mara makes a motion, Mr.
Joyce
Joyce seconds. Discussion, errors, corrections. Roll call, please.
Mr. Joyce,
Aye.
Mrs. Joyce, Mrs. Hardwick.
Aye.
Mrs. Mara. Mr. Conrad.
Aye.
Mr. Thompson.
Well, those are the meeting minutes from the June 20th, 2023 council meeting.
There's also minutes from a Village Hall Committee meeting on July 25th that wasn't included in time for the agenda, but those also need to be approved.
Are they?
They're in the packet.
They're in the packet? Okay, so. let's see. What date was that?
July 25th at
All right, I have a motion
3 p.m.
to approve the minutes from July 25th meeting, please.
So moved.
Mr. Conrad makes a motion. Mrs. Mara seconds, roll call, please.
Mr. Joyce,
Aye.
Mrs. Joyce, Mrs. Hardwick,
Aye.
Mrs. Mara. Mr. Conrad.
Aye.
Mr. Thompson.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to legislation. Resolution 2023-20, a resolution acknowledging the donation of $1,000 by Kevin Thompson for playground equipment and declaring an emergency. Do I have a motion to suspend the rules, please?
So moved.
Mr. Joyce makes a motion.
Second.
Mr. Conrad seconds. Roll call, please.
Mr. Joyce,
Aye.
Mrs. Joyce, Mrs. Hardwick,
Aye.
Mrs. Mara, Mr. Conrad.
Aye.
Mr. Thompson.
Thank you. And do I have a motion to approve resolution 2023-20, please? Samara makes a motion.
I'll second.
So Joyce seconds. Discussion. I'd like to personally thank you. It was very generous of you. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
And it would be good. Put,
Sons here and really want to help and contribute to our playground and the parks, and Ryan in particular has been doing a really good job. And the mayor for making our playground safer and updated and better. So,
still working on it, but we'll
Yeah.
get there. Thank you.
well, here's some extra money to do that. So,
Thank you.
thank you.
Appreciate that. Okay.
Yeah, I just want to ditto the mayor's comments. That's a very, very generous offer to do that. And
I just gotta say.
no,
say
2047.
that.
It's 2042, but yeah.
Oh, all right.
No, 2043.
Okay. I knew it was an.
Sometime in the future.
Yeah. But thank you. That was very, very generous of you and your wife to do that.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Joyce,
Aye.
Mrs. Joyce, Mrs. Hardwick,
Aye.
Mrs. Mara, Mr. Conrad,
Aye.
Mr. Thompson.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Next is resolution 2023-21. A resolution amending the permanent appropriation funds for the village of Timberlake, Ohio for the year 2023 and declare an emergency. Do I have a motion to suspend the rules, please?
So moved.
Joyce makes a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Ms. Hardwood seconds. Roll call, please.
Mr. Joyce,
Aye.
Mrs. Joyce, Mrs. Hardwick,
Aye.
Mrs. Mara, Mr. Conrad.
Aye.
Mr. Thompson.
Thank you. Do I have a motion approving resolution 2023-21, please? Mrs. Mara makes a motion.
I'll second.
Mr. Joyce seconds. Discussion.
So this is recently the illuminating company increased the rates on our streetlights. Of course, electricity has gone up in general, so that's not a surprise, but this amended appropriation would allocate $500 more funding in 100130-311 electricity, so that will increase to $4,700. And then there's an increase of $30 to $130 for the year for 100150-311. The first one is the street lights. The second one is our only traffic light at Lakeshore 91.
I didn't know we had a traffic light. We're
Yes.
one traffic light town, huh?
Yep.
Village. That's not covered by. okay.
No.
Even though it's down there. Oh, okay.
So,
But we wouldn't have the power to take that traffic light out though, would we?
Not likely.
ODOT would not look kindly upon it.
With the house that's right there.
okay, roll call, please.
Mr. Joyce,
Aye.
Mrs. Joyce, Mrs. Hardwick,
Aye.
Mrs. Mara, Mr. Conrad.
Aye.
Mr. Thompson.
Aye.
Okay, next is ordinance 5-2023. An ordinance amending section 10 of the Village of Timberlake Personnel Policies and Procedures, including the establishment of vacation and sick leave policy for full-time employees and several corrections, clarifications to section 10.
I'd like to make a motion that we table this for right now.
Okay. We have a motion from Mr. Joyce to table.
Second.
There's no discussion on a motion to table.
Mr. Conrad seconds. Roll call, please.
Mr. Joyce,
Aye.
Mrs. Joyce, Mrs. Hardwick,
Aye.
Mrs. Mara. Mr. Conrad.
Aye.
Mr. Thompson.
Aye.
Thank you.
Please make sure the record reflects who made the motion to table and who to second, because they'll have to do the same to untable it.
Okay.
Next is ordinance 6-2023. Third reading, an ordinance amending section 700.03 prohibited animals of the codified ordinances of the Village of Timberlake. Do I have a motion to approve, please?
I
Mrs.
will
Meyer makes a
second.
motion, Mr. Thompson seconds, discussion.
Would, then this would be a question for our council. If we were to consider amending this in any way, are we allowed to do that without it going through the first reading, second reading, and third reading again, or does it?
Well, you can always suspend the rules. But my rule of thumb is typically if you're gonna change an ordinance, you want it to go to all three readings. We all understand that there are emergencies, like some of the things that we've had to suspend the rules for tonight. When you're gonna go to the point of changing an actual ordinance, like something that's been on the books for a long time, I think it's worthwhile to leave it for three readings. But it's always up to council to decide if they want to suspend the rules to make a change. But any ordinance is subject to further legislation down the road. So whatever you agree to today, if you decide to pass this, you could start another three readings in next month on something else related to that if you wanted to make further changes. So not sure I answered your question, but
He could in theory make them, like, say there's one thing he wants to change in it, like say the distance from the fence. He can make a motion to amend it as written to include a different phrasing in here today. And then we could vote on that without going through three readings.
you mean if he made a motion to approve this with a correction,
Yeah, or
Amending it?
and amending it, yeah.
that's not what he did. Right? You made a
No,
motion.
I haven't made a motion
No,
at all.
no.
Okay.
We're
Right
just on
now,
discussion.
we're in discussion on the third reading.
Right.
Okay, so at this point, I'm asking a question. I will tell you that I am somewhat moved by one of our residents' position that 5 feet is not enough space between the property line and the proposed regulation on chicken coops.
Then what the other option is to do what you did with the other ordinance, which is to table it. We could set it up for a work session before the next meeting. And if you chose to untable it or make any changes to it, you could do that at that time. There's
Okay.
nothing requires you to go forward with the third reading if you want to table it.
Okay. So then I make a motion to table this.
I think we have to vote down the original motion if that's the case. So there has to be a vote on I think there was already a motion to approve in a second.
Right.
And then discussion.
That's what I was,
So there'd have to be a vote on that first.
A point of order. I'm not sure that that's right. I know that there are two motions that have to be disposed of before you can act on anything further. One of them is a motion to adjourn. The second one, that's the second highest, is a motion to table. And I believe that we have to deal with my motion to table, provided I get a second.
the motion on the table though
It's to approve.
is to approve. Unless they chose to ask to have their motion and second removed.
Are we still in discussion or do we have to deal with his?
It's still, well, we're still in discussion. You've got a motion to approve and you've got a second. So that's when you have discussion.
I remember last year when you guys were discussing the fees for the losing the beach key, which I think is ridiculous, by the way, but besides the fact, Shannon and went back and forth with people and I believe it was already supposed to be $100, but she got it down to $50 just in discussion. It was just like consensus. Is that possible to do here with something like that?
Well, again, you're in the discussion phase. You've got a motion and a second. If there is any, the concern that I have is that there's really only one change to this ordinance, which is to cross out chickens from prohibited animals. Everything else is staying the same. So any change that you would do to this would either leave it alone or add additional animals that you would not prohibit. You see where I'm?
Yeah, I see what you're saying. So this is just crossing out chickens.
This is just,
This is not-
this is
all-
just that section.
That's all this does.
discussing
This is
the
not the
fees
guidelines.
Of the, how many feet and this and that. Okay.
Right, because the second ordinance that comes up next is
Oh,
related to
okay.
chickens.
I.
It's the second
This just, all this does is it takes chickens off the prohibited. Now, let me warn you,
But you do that and
let me warn you. If you take chickens as off the prohibited list and then you table the other motion,
Then it's a.
you are now opening it up as a free-for-all for all chickens.
Okay,
Which I never thought this morning when I awoke that I would have to make that statement, but I have. So
when,
interesting.
when the second ordinance comes up, 7/2023, can we make a motion? to Ask for a motion as amended. Depending on what Jerry's distance from. The thing in mind is,
you can, but
you prefer, it'd be
but-
easier to do it. in a
But
work
making
session.
a last minute amendment on the fly is always a bit of a challenge.
Yeah.
Because you're gonna miss something. I would rather take the contemplative time to table it, go back and rewrite it and the way that it should be and do it right. Rather than amend it. Now, the other opportunity would be to prove it and then next month come back with the amendment to it and then suspend the rules with those amendments. It's entirely up to council, but as Mr. Roskus has rightly said, we've got a motion in a second. We're in discussion.
Because if we pass this one now and table the next one, we're in la la.
If
land.
you, no.
You can
the
have
better way
chickens
to
with
do
no
that.
rule.
The better way to do that would be to vote this down
Yes,
because you don't want to make the change.
right.
Table the other one. And then you can come back and have a further discussion.
And we can re-vote on this without going. to
You
third.
can always bring this back up as an ordinance.
Thank you.
Okay.
Does that help?
Yes, so I withdraw my motion to,
Okay, so roll call, please.
Mr. Joyce,
no.
Mrs. Joyce, Mrs. Hardwick,
They're voting no to what?
To changing the prohibited animals to take chickens out.
But the reason is because we want to discuss the next ordinance more.
Or you can abstain.
Or vote yes.
Yeah.
It's your vote.
Yes would be leaving it alone,
Yes would be
leaving it.
taking
Take it out.
chickens out.
I say yes.
Okay.
I'm a yes vote.
No. You can call.
Mrs. Mara,
No, you're next.
Mr. Conrad,
No.
Yes.
To you, Mayor.
It's
Is that
a
3-3.
tie vote, so the mayor votes.
The mayor abstains.
Yes.
You understand?
This is your first vote of,
He's never had it before.
Not supposed to have it.
But
Dude.
in a circumstance where council is deadlocked at 3 votes apiece, you get the opportunity to vote. A yes vote would be to approve the changes to the ordinance. A no vote would be to leave the ordinance the way that it is. And forever have a lack of tranquility in your household.
but if we,
Boy, oh boy, you know.
It's really cold tonight in the lake. No.
I can feel the frigidness coming through.
Again, my only concern with approving this and then tabling the next one is that you're gonna have chickens are no longer going to be prohibited without any guidelines. And that's my only concern.
they'll have free range. intended.
Pardon the pun,
I'm not.
or whenever you decide to pass.
Or we don't table, we pass the next one and then we come back and amend it the other meeting.
There, you have lots of options.
The next one can pass too.
Yeah, the next one can pass and then at least we have some,
We could put further
control.
restrictions on it.
But then we should come back the next month and amend the 5 feet, 10 feet.
However-
something like that, suggesting we want to do that.
What about promissory estoppel? Where somebody has actually
Start
built-
it. Well, what he's saying is if somebody quickly puts a chicken coop in during this 30-day period, we would not have the legal authority to retroactively change it. That's why he's using the promissory estoppel.
And this
is what
goes
happens.
into
That's
effect.
what happens when people are married to attorneys.
Yes. And I think we can,
I actually knew that before I met her, but that's okay.
and Jerry, I think we could come to some agreement that we will pass the next ordinance potentially
Well,
with,
right now
with the
it's in the
change.
mayor's hands,
Yes.
That hasn't changed.
and that's where we are.
If we pass the next one, and then we can come back next month and make an amendment to it.
And
right?
make further restrictions if you so desire.
Okay, so I'm gonna vote yes.
they be grandfathered?
Okay.
Under 5 feet for 30 days.
In this,
Then you come back.
right, you still have the same, issue, yes.
It's the same thing.
Well, except that you're, well, first of all, it's not public portion. But to answer your question, yes, but there would be restrictions in there that would require them to file a application, right? And we could hold that application until after the next meeting. So that gives us an out.
Okay.
So your vote is,
Yes.
okay,
The ordinance is approved.
And in the weeds of legislating, I like it.
Wow, first time. Okay,
First time.
all for chickens.
all for chickens. My favorite too.
You don't even eat it.
He hates chicken.
Oh my God, I can tell you a story about my sciatic and chicken. Anyway,
All right.
ordinance 7-2023, third reading, an ordinance permitting and keeping and raising of chickens in the village of Timberlake. Do I have a motion to approve, please?
So moved.
Joyce makes a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Ms. Hardwick seconds. Discussion.
Discussion I have would be, what is the difference if you have a fence and there's dogs in the neighbor's yard? Dogs urinate on fences. Dogs can defecate anywhere they want in a yard. So are you saying that chickens and dogs are a different thing when it comes to what nature does?
Well, the cackling and stuff.
It's not a public, this is not public portion.
There's a second public comment section that you can speak.
Yeah, it's just my comment that
Yeah,
it
please bring
seems
it
to
up
be no
again.
different than having a dog or a cat or a real cat, not a feral cat, a pet cat. That's the only thing I say.
So I do agree, and I am okay with chickens, and I have the same sentiment as Mr. Joyce and Jane, and 5 feet isn't that far from it, and you're putting a structure, right? It's not that you're just having a dog free rein that pees on the one post every time and walks away, right? They usually don't hang out where they pee and poop, just like we said earlier with the feral cat population we have. But, moving it because it's a set structure that they have to be enclosed in, I think makes sense. And that's the reason for, I would say, my no vote on the last one, but this one has to go or else we're in la la land, and that's not a good spot to be. So, but I think we can come to some semblance of agreements of how far away is good.
I would, again, since we're in discussion, I would recommend that you do a work session on this. Give people the opportunity to come in. To me, and I haven't looked at the zoning code. I would think, and maybe Mr. Gray could lend some insight on this, that you wouldn't want a structure to be any closer to the property line than you would allow an accessory structure.
Right.
So if the accessory structures in the village is 15 feet or 20 feet, this should be likewise. Because it is an accessory structure, but it's a specific accessory.
Like a shed.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, I also share your concerns, Mr. Joyce and Jane. And I was a little bit thrown off when you voted yes, and I wanted to jump on that just on the off chance that the no vote put a kibosh on the entire thing and it never came back. So that's why I voted.
Okay.
Yes, last.
Can I say something? Jane, you're very in tune. You follow Timberlake Times, you follow our meetings. It's been in the Timberlake Times a lot. You just, you come to council meetings, you pay attention. And, you know, when you said it's true, you know, who knows about this? Many times I go back and Debbie King, you know this, Timberlake Times, they're just sitting in people's boxes. People don't pay attention. You know, and we have to, we put our meetings in the News Herald. You put them, you know, voluntarily in the Timberlake Times. This has been out there. This has been out there. You know, it's not just I gotta go sneak it in there. It's, you know.
It's on YouTube.
Yeah, and it's on YouTube, it's in the minutes, it's in the paper, or advertising News Herald, and thank you for always being in tune. So that's
And I-
where I,
Any other discussion on
being involved.
it? Okay, roll call, please.
Yeah.
Well, I think if it would need a permit, it would be.
Roll call's been.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Joyce,
Aye.
Mrs. Joyce, Mrs. Hardwick,
I,
Mrs. Mara.
Aye.
Mr. Conrad,
Aye.
Mr. Thompson.
Thank you. Okay, finally, ordinance 9-2023. An ordinance authorizing the mayor and fiscal officer to make an application to the Ohio Department of Transportation on behalf of the village of Timberlake for 90-10 funding for planned safety improvements on Lakeshore Boulevard and to accept grant funding awarded pursuant to the application therefore and declare an emergency. Do I have a motion to suspend the rules, please?
I make a motion to suspend.
Mr. Conrad makes a motion. Do I have a second? Do I have a second? This is Joyce seconds. Roll call, please.
Mr. Joyce,
Aye.
Mrs. Joyce, Mrs. Hardwick,
I,
Mrs. Mara.
Aye.
Mr. Conrad.
Aye.
Mr. Thompson.
Thank you. And do I have a motion to approve ordinance 9-2023, please?
So moved.
Mr. Conrad makes a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
This is Hardwick seconds. Discussion?
Question, if we apply for this grant, are we required to use it? If we find, for instance, that the great majority of Lakeshore Boulevard residents don't want it, are we able to walk away from it? Or once we apply for the grant, must we use it for specifically for putting in sidewalks and that we are tied into now doing that project until it's complete?
You can withdraw.
Yeah, okay. Okay.
Yeah, that's a misconception. People think that you have to take it.
No, once you've applied, at any point in time, if the legislative authority, based upon citizen input, decides to go in a different direction, you simply would let the granting authority know that you're withdrawing your request to be considered for the grant.
Then the other thing I would say is that before we would actually start the project, I would like us to take the time, and I'm willing to do this. I believe I'm speaking for my wife as well, that we would be willing to actually survey those people whose property would be affected by this and try to have an understanding of what their concerns are, and also how many of them. I counted, just quick count as I'm driving down Lakeshore Boulevard, I counted 30 houses that would be affected by this. And I agree with you, Mr. Conrad, that we have talked about this a lot, that it's been in the Timberlake Times, that it is on our YouTube channel, and it is something that has been pretty open about it. And from a safety standpoint, I think that this is potentially an important project. But I also know that it is going to change the property, the look of the property from each of the people on Lakeshore Boulevard, and it will also change the complexion of the village in terms of the fact that we are now this sort of quaint little old-fashioned village without sidewalks, And this is going to change that, even if it's only on Lakeshore Boulevard. So I think that I would be willing to actually go and talk to residents. Perhaps we have a town hall, we invite people to come in. Perhaps as we're looking at the planning for this, that we invite people to weigh in on what the plans look like. I think that there's a lot of things that the council can do in order to either win them over or find out where they stand. So that's,
I think having, I think people's perception is they're losing a lot of land. So, you know, when to draw up like a sketch of how it's gonna be and what it's going to impact on everybody's land, you know, would give them a greater idea that we're not coming up to your front door, we're not taking your whole yard, you know, that kind of thing. A visual, to me, a visual, you know, somebody says this, paint this room blue, and I'm like, huh? You know, but if you show me what blue you're talking about, then I can visualize, you know, and I think that helps people a lot of times look at it differently.
What you're telling us is,
It's not public portion,
Yeah.
not yet.
no, give us 1 second. But what you're saying to me, it's still the right of way.
Oh, yeah. The right of way off Lakeshore is bigger than any right of way in the village because of the state highway. So
You're certain of that.
positive of that. The only thing we aren't 100% certain, they gotta find the marker when they come out to do the surveys, is the center line, the true center line, and of course it moved a foot or two left or right from the widening. And where they put. the
Well, when they
center-
put in the
There's a-
bike path, that should have been resurveyed, so you probably would have a more recent survey for that if they
Yeah.
just did that.
Yeah, and they'll have it and they have to do that when they do,
Right.
but with Brian Blaney, the coordinator for ODOT, it's well within the right of way, and we don't have to go through the, you know, purchasing of land like some projects do, annex land, and et cetera. So it's a easier process in that regard because it is the right of way. And one thing we forgot to
Excuse me,
mention.
could you bring your microphone? to the-
One thing we forgot to mention earlier is it's not on top of the sidewalks, as people mentioned the culverts that we have. And while this is getting torn up, the drainage systems are gonna have to be improved. So it's a twofold. It's not only installing a sidewalk, but it's helping the stormwater runoff that comes off of Lakeshore. And if, you know, the residents that live on Lakeshore know, a lot of the houses or a lot of the driveways are lower than the street because they just keep adding more and more and more asphalt on top of it without chipping away a lot. So the water runs right into our yards, and all our yards flood. Whether you have a culvert, a storm sewer there or not, it with the amount of rainfall we've gotten over the last year, I mean, we get 100-year flood every year, it seems like, and it'll help with that water, and it'll help the people behind on Shawandasi where the water runs through Lakeshore, through people's yards into there, and you get that one point right on Shawandasi that floods out every time when you get a heavy rain. So it's twofold, and we omitted that earlier when we were having the discussion. So
Thank you, yes.
Oh, that's a major
Good
point.
discussion.
That's a major point.
Yeah, I
Better,
know.
better drainage.
there's just so many points to talk about.
No, I mean, those
Yeah.
are like swamps back there.
100% like swamps. And potentially helps when they come by and snowplow too, right? Because now you have an improved culvert that's designed better, right? It may stop them from throwing snow.
You have, since, do you have, drainage problems on your lot, in your yard?
Yeah, it flows right down my driveway like a river, right into the yard. It has a swell that goes, and then it flows all the way to Shawandasi. It's like a little mini creek that goes through when we get heavy
Ah.
storms.
Didn't know that, okay.
Okay. Other discussion, roll call, please.
Mr. Joyce,
all right.
Mrs. Joyce, Mrs. Hardwick,
Aye.
Mrs. Mara,
Aye.
Mr. Conrad,
Aye.
Mr. Thompson.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to reports, mayor's report. Just want to say that again, thank you everyone that participated in Family Fun Days and so forth. And about the playground, I want to thank again Mr. Thompson for his generous donation, and we will be putting it to good use because as anyone can see, we've already put new mulch around the playground. We're trying to keep up with the weeds. It's like impossible because we're trying to use what is it? What do you call it? No, the environmentally friendly.
Green,
green,
green
yeah.
friendly.
So we're using environmentally friendly weed killer and it's not working too well. So, but either way, we're still diligently pulling them out by hand, but we're working on that. We actually have a tic-tac-toe board that we're going to be installing hopefully within the next 2 weeks. And we also have cornholes boards that we're going to be installing right here in parcel A. So we'll be doing that maybe this week. So we're trying to get that set up now. So got a couple other things we're doing. So other than that, and then, oh, I did get a report. There was a broken stair on our beach steps and we repaired that. So got that taken care of. And if anyone, again, if anyone sees anything or needs anything done, just contact myself or one of council and we'll be glad to take care of that for you. Okay, solicitor's report.
Thank you, Mayor. I didn't really have any specific report because, we continue to work with the police department on things that we've got pending. As well as legislation with Mr. Roskus. But I wanted to say thank you to all of you. My wife and I had a chance to come on Family Fun Day and we had a wonderful time. And it was we were very well received, even though we're not Timberlake people. So thank you all.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you, Colin. Okay, Ms. Hardwick, Village Hall.
The hall, I've gotten 4 reservations for next year already, so people are already planning ahead for graduations, things of that nature. And possibly next year, we're gonna look at changing the flooring, but that comes up again next year. And I always thank my service guys who keep the place spotless for me and for our residents for their parties. And I want to thank the mayor for taking everybody's comments about thanking everybody for Family Fun Day. Had a great time. Thank you, Kevin, for your donation. Everything. This is a great community. We all pitched in.
We've done a lot, but thank you. Thank you. Okay, Mr. Conrad, you're on.
There. Yeah, Family Fun Day. I want to thank Cindy and the Village Club. Kim, I spoke with her when we were first starting, and I'm gonna go on the record and say she was right about leaving the doors open when the traffic started flowing. But when we first came in and they were open when there was less foot traffic, so we figured it out and we made it work. I think that's how we roll in Timberlake, right? Sometimes you just got to make decisions on the fly and go with it and get along and figure out a resolution. And that was good. And I can't go without thanking my grill partner, Bill Julian, and the kids helped a little bit too, the Julian kids. So it's always something we look forward to every year. This is our 3rd year of me, Bill, and Jeff cooking on the grill. And I always have a softball tournament and say I can't come, and then I think it's an act of God that we always stink that weekend and get knocked out early, and I always make it. So I hope to continue making it. I hope that I can get my softball schedule or get the petition, the sanction to change the softball schedule, because we have an important day, a Family Fun Day, and we got sausages and wieners to cook. So, but couldn't do it without the Village Club. It was a good turnout. I was pleasantly surprised to see. Other people might be unpleasantly surprised by this, but people were bringing their friends and families from outside the village. So there was a huge turnout of people that got to see Timberlake on display, how amazing this community is, and how we come together to pull off, an event that's not that easy to pull off with the parade and organizing all that and all the food and all the side dishes. It's like a big family. And I think that's why I like the day Family Fun Day. I know there was some contention about changing that, but it embodies what it is. We all come together as families and have fun. So that was great. Sewers have been, I'm not even gonna say it, no report on sewers. And then, the sidewalk Grant Avenue, we are still waiting to hear back about the Nature Works grant. So that should be coming soon in the fall. I probably check it more often than I should, because I'm like eagerly waiting to see if we pulled it off. And then me and the mayor with this resolution for authorizing him and the fiscal officer to make the application to get signed, we'll submit it. And then we have a defense of it coming up in a couple weeks to go down to ODOT and give a presentation in support of it. So we'll keep everyone apprised of that. And I do want to say for everyone in the village, like this is the route, the public comment section is the route where we solicit feedback from the community on what they want and don't want. And the Timberlake Times are in everyone's mailbox every month, and that is our way of communicating for those that can't make it. I mean, I completely understand that not everyone can make the meetings every time. But our numbers are listed on the website too. We're all willing to take calls, field calls, and have discussions if there's something you want to bring up that you can't bring up at the meeting. But the best place for that dialogue and that discussion is right here in the public comment section. There's be another one coming up at the end for those of you that have comments that you wanted to make. We don't mean to cut you off. It's just the way to keep orderly business. It's how every legislative body works with public comment sections. You know, we do have a time limit on it, and we usually let that go, right? We want to hear from you guys. This is your meeting. This is your government. This is your village as much as it is ours. So we do welcome those comments and want to hear from the community. It's just, you know, hard as a dad of two and a full-time job. You know, I'm a part-time council person. It turns into full-time quite quickly when you're going to NOACA meetings and ODOT meetings and Lake Tran and chasing all this stuff around. Like there's a sacrifice that, I mean, and especially my family makes for it, but it's hard to go and walk door to door and solicit and put out surveys are hard to pull off. They're flawed most times, right? You get only people that are opposed to them sometimes because a lot of people are what's the word I'm looking for? Will just abstain or don't care to vote yes or no. You know, you get a low turnout, it's easy to swing one way or the other. So if people could come and, right, we did solicit feedback when we put it out, we had one person come. That was a no. Everyone else we
When you
talked
put
to.
it out in the Times, you mean?
Yeah, we put it out in the Times calling for people to come in. It was actually in its own article, right? It wasn't even in the, I get you don't want to read the 8-point font that is the meeting minutes, but it was its own standalone like solicitation for feedback. And you know, without turnout, without people coming, we just continue to do what we feel is best on behalf of the village. That is our role that we play. So, you know, I encourage, I like the spirited debate. I like the discussion. I like people coming and speaking their minds. That's how this country responded. And I think that's what keeps Timberlake great. So I want to say thank you for those that did show up. I know it's hard to take time out of your busy schedules. So I think that's it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Joyce, finance.
Catching on to what Mr. Conrad said, I want to thank people for coming to the meeting tonight. There are a lot of times where we meet as council and yeah, we're sort of on TV, but it's much better when you have a live crowd who is here to tell you what they're thinking. This is, you know, we sometimes talk about issues that strike a nerve, and it's always better to hear directly from residents. I had the benefit of being able to talk with a couple of residents who called me based on being able to find me on the directory, and we had a good solid conversation. I had an opportunity to talk with some residents at the Family Fun Days as well, and I always appreciate hearing from them so that I can be enlightened as to how they would want me to vote and how they would want me to discuss whatever's coming up for legislation. Great turnout. Again, I know this is sort of redundant, but great turnout for Family Fun Day. I noticed that a lot of residents invited family and friends to come, and there were a couple things that I think resulted in that. Number one, Timberlake really put on a great show in terms of how the village looked, in terms of how the people were interacting with one another. But I think that we ran a little short of side dishes. So I think that maybe as we look at what we can do next year, that maybe if villagers are going to be inviting family and friends, that the villagers then will bring a little more in terms of side dishes. I think that those sort of sold out early, and then we just had the hot dogs and kibasi.
Well, Village Club,
noted
We just
that.
had a meeting last night,
Yeah.
so yeah,
That came
we're
up.
looking at different
Okay.
avenues.
I talked with the father of a neighbor of mine and this was his first time visiting the village. His son and daughter-in-law moved in here a little over a year ago, I guess, about a year, I guess. And he was really, really impressed with the village, impressed with the picnic atmosphere, the children's games, just the whole environment, and said it reminded him of picnics that he experienced as a kid. And it was really just a great day for him. I thought the tree dedication for Ron Mona was appropriately timed. I thought that was great. I thought that the quartet walking around singing the national anthem, that was terrific. The children's games, the foam maker, I thought that those kids in that foam was just incredible. It was just sheer joy. And again, my heart goes out to Mary Beth, because I know that this is something that she really treasures, and would have been great if she had been able to not step in the ditch to end up being able to be here all day. And so from that standpoint, what a great advertisement for people to come to the clam bake. So please, if you haven't signed up for that already, please come. I think it's going to be a blast. So that's it. Thank you. Okay. Joyce?
So now, the village probably question. How great are we making money? I just wanted to mention one thing. I'm walking the dog this morning and the catch basin right there near the park had water above the grade. We need to fill it out. One right where the triangle meets right by the playground.
Oh, yes, we're aware of that one.
Oh.
See, I jinxed it. I was just saying, I'm not gonna say anything.
Well,
We're
it's good
good.
like
I
that,
did anyway.
so we're aware of that one, yeah. Okay, great, thank you. Okay, Nancy?
Real quick, if you go out surveying, I'd like to go with you, or we'll coordinate it,
Yeah.
Evening, I'm home more, but I could do it. Okay, I'll make time to survey with you. I'd like to do that.
Okay.
I had a neighbor say that they felt that their freedom of speech was curtailed here in Timberlake. This is election time, and we have candidates running for school board too. Our fiscal officer is running for school board. We have Denise Verdi who's running for school board, and people will be going door to door, giving them their pamphlets of what they're standing for. I'm not so sure if everybody understands. There is a no soliciting ordinance, but soliciting is not. Soliciting is asking for money or selling something. And I don't know, officer, if you're aware of this, I was told, I was wishing the chief was here tonight, and Gary Gray wasn't here tonight, but that there was a $500, and I couldn't find it in the ORC code. I couldn't find it in our code, that you had to have a $500 like registration fee if you were going to come in here. Now that would just be under, if you're soliciting, really selling something.
Is there a no knock legislation?
Okay. What does our no knock say? Because you're running for school board, a lot of people are running for elections, so forth. I know when we ran 4 years ago, we knocked on doors and spoke to people. And if they were there, we spoke to people. If not, we left. They felt that they were squelched because, and if you know, we had in this village here, we had vote yes, issue one, and we had vote no, issue one. That vote issue one, the last election, was contentious. Okay. They said they were going around from door to door to door, and all of a sudden they were stopped. Police chief doing her job came up and said, "What are you folks doing?" And she said she got Gary Gray on the phone, and Gary Gray said they had to be registered. Well, that's political education. I don't think that was interpreted right. So if you could look in for that for us, I just don't think it was interpreted right. Someone probably got a complaint, or someone, I said, well, I don't know what side you're on, but probably they said, well, I think it was a neighbor that down the road that didn't like that we were putting out their opinion, and they wanted us to stop because their opinion was different than our opinion. So I never want anyone to think that your free speech and because there's another election coming up in November for other things that are on the ballot that are important, really important things on this ballot coming up.
Problem is that the United States Supreme Court has ruled on political speech. And you have to be very careful in telling people that they cannot go door to door or put yard signs out because of.
Careful not to tell that, not to say that.
Yeah, they
Not
should.
to
be.
Not to prohibit it.
Yeah, they
Right.
should be able to.
All right, right. I thought so. I thought so. And I said I'd bring it up here tonight because, you know, this guy goes, hey, I was in the army for 4 decades. I fought for this free peace. I mean, I let him spiel because he was a man, you know, who was in the room for 40 years, you know, and he did about 20 houses with his wife and they just put them in the doorways because he knew not to touch the mailbox in any way, not even the flag, not put it in the mailbox. And he said, I think someone reported me because they didn't like what I was standing for. And I said, I will address it. I will get it out there. And I will, you know, and I know the chief, what I understand what the situation was. The gentleman said the chief was nothing but nice, orderly, very friendly, but had called Mr. Gray on the phone. And he said, no, they gotta file $500 thing to get it out. I don't think Mr. Gray understood this is education to the public on what's going on in our own country and state. So just putting it out there. This is election season. We have Mr. Ross's running here. We have Denise Verdi running here. Also, you know, let's everybody be educated. And if you don't want to hear from them, just take the pamphlet and shut the door.
Months ago, we passed that soliciting ordinance, and I believe I even brought up as a joke, I said that wouldn't count for its political candidacy, right?
Correct.
And because it does not include political candidacy.
Right. I think someone called, I'm guessing, I do not know. I'm guessing someone did call, you know, chief being a good, you know, just came up, took care of it. I don't think Gary Gray listened to what was really going on. And then, so I couldn't find it in the ordinances that there was no political solicitation. I did not find it. I looked and I looked and I looked and I found it. I couldn't find a $500 ordinance permit fee at all.
There's the ordinance in question. We have yet to locate a copy of it.
Right?
Correct.
Right. I
So
couldn't
it was,
find it.
the minutes indicate that it was passed in 2021, but there's no copy.
Right. And we just did American Legal, right? So,
Yes, so that's not in there because there's no copy.
right. I knew it.
in
Okay. All
existence
right.
That I could find,
I'm not crazy,
but the minutes indicate that
Well,
it
that's
was passed in 2020.
but we have no proof. Okay.
So we
Okay.
are still looking for that.
And that's for if people want to solicit, actually do business.
It probably does relate to that, but I don't have.
We don't know. Okay. Got it. That's when things weren't being filed correctly.
2021-04, I believe.
That's when things weren't being filed correctly, right?
2021.
Pretty much everything else is there.
04.
So
Oh,
there was only a
yeah.
couple, there was a couple that were tabled and that one's also missing.
We Dig it up. Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Hey, Mr. Thompson.
Oh, as far as trees go, as everybody knows, we had a few kind of rough storms over the last month and we've had some limbs come down. But normally the police department, it gets wind of that pretty quickly and they put out some cones and they contact me, the mayor, and our service department. And I gotta say, our service department has done an excellent job getting on site very quickly and taking care of them. So we don't have to get out expensive tree companies to come out and take care of things. So definitely tell them we appreciate their hard work, Mayor, please. And that's all for today.
Great, thank you. Okay, fiscal officer report, Mr. Roskis.
Our general fund ending balance through July 31st is $315,618. Month to date revenue for July was $38,547 versus expenditures of $43,058 for a net decline of $4,511. Expenditures are around $2,000 more than anticipated. This is primarily due to higher than expected operating supplies and materials costs for the police department for the month. It's mostly IT expenses and ordering of tires for the winter. Our general fund revenue through July 31st is $8,869 less than last year. Revenues in July were approximately $16,500 less than estimated. This was almost entirely due to less than expected income tax revenue.
You too.
Echo. Property tax and income tax remain below estimated revenues for the year. At this time, based on current estimated spending rates and revenue, we estimate a surplus for the general fund this year of around $69,374. This would not include additions to the village hall or police cruiser capital funds. The change versus last month and the surplus estimate is due to higher than expected expenses and significantly lower than anticipated income in July. If the estimated surplus continues to decline, we may need to reconsider reducing or eliminating transfers to our capital funds at the end of this year. Also, the village will need to maintain conservative spending versus total appropriations to achieve a surplus. For example, in 2022, total spending in the general fund was $647,712 versus total permitted appropriations of $761,708. Other significant fund activity and miscellaneous. We paid our semi-annual loan payment out of Fund 3901 Sanitary Sewer Fund for our ODWA loan in the amount of $7,086. And also paid our semi-annual loan payment for our OPWC loan for the 2016 street improvements in the amount of $1,415.52. Additionally, $600 in refunds were issued from the 9901 hall rental security deposit refund fund. And also just a heads up, in September, we will be looking at requesting certification for 3 renewal levies to the county auditor. So those are 3 renewal levies that would be likely placed on the ballot in next year's primary.
What are
And
those
that's-
specifically for, John?
Those are operating levies.
Okay, for the village.
Yeah, the renewal operating levies. So historically, they've been passed a number of times. So it's just about 5 years since they were last put on there. So
And those are property tax?
correct.
I also want to add that that's for 2 sets of snow tires, correct?
Right,
Yeah, we bought them from Post. Because
Correct.
we got as much as we could out of those.
right. Those are
tires.
2 sets.
Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you for that report. Police chief report, Lieutenant.
Thank you, Mayor, council members. On behalf of Chief Schofield, we have the following police report. We have 7 911 calls, 3 accidents, 6 administration calls, 1 alarm, 4 animal complaints, 5 calls for assistance, 60 community policing calls, 1 harassment. We have 34 house checks, 1 call for information. We have 5 investigations, 1 noise complaint, 1 phone call. We had 1 suicide, 3 suspicious person, 3 suspicious vehicles, and 3 traffic stops. We had 2 calls for trees and 2 welfare checks. That concludes the police report.
Okay, thank you. Okay, and next is the zoning property maintenance report. Gary Gray couldn't be here, but he sent me the information. For the month, we have permits were 1 fence, 3 garage sales, 1 shed permit, 1 garage permit, 1 interior remodel permit, 1 roof permit, and 1 window permit. And that's it for that report. And then we move on to purchases and approvals. A motion to approve the June and July 2023 financial reports. Do I have a motion to approve, please?
So moved.
Mr. Joyce makes a motion.
Second.
Mr. Conrad seconds. Discussion. On being heard, roll call, please.
Mr. Joyce,
Aye.
Mrs. Joyce, Mrs. Hardwick,
Aye.
Mrs. Mara.
Aye.
Mr. Conrad.
Aye.
Mr. Thompson.
Thank you. Next is, do I have a motion to approval of payment to Premier Tree Specialist LLC in the amount of $1,000 for emergency tree branch removal near 15 East Shore Boulevard?
Make a motion.
Mrs. Mara makes a motion. Do I have a second? Mrs. Joyce seconds. Discussion.
When was this?
This was a Sunday. We got a call from the police department. A big limb fell right into.
It was about to crack
East Shore.
open. I went underneath it. It was.
That's right. It was
huge.
about to fall onto
It
the East
was-
Shore.
And
Oh,
it
so
fell
it's
off.
hanging dangerous situation.
Yeah.
Dangerous situation.
Go to
So
crush-
Limb cost $1,000.
we had to get a crane
Emergency.
in emergency at the last minute.
That's why I'm grateful for our service department when they can take care of things.
Yeah,
Right, because they cut it up.
They cut it all up. It would have been more if we would have
Yeah,
let
they
them
just,
cut it
yeah.
up, but we just told them to drop it and leave it there.
But they needed a crane to do that.
Oh,
so-
it was that big?
It was a
like
crane, oh, yeah.
operate. It wasn't like just, okay.
No.
Okay.
It
We
was a-
pole saw or tree climb and cut it.
No.
It was a big crane and they actually were working, luckily they were working down the road, so they came right over, they dropped that for us and then we took care of it from there, so.
Just get our.
All situations where we had,
Container.
we sent our guys first to see if they can cut it, and he says, nah, a little too big
Yeah,
for us.
cause
so.
that whole tree from Davy when that emergency happened was only 15, right?
I think it was timing.
It was
It
a
was
time.
a Sunday,
Okay.
you know.
That was another thing, Sunday and. no.
It was big. It was
I
big.
know you're a conservative spender, so I trust it was the right price at the right time. I'm just kind of shocked.
Oh, no, this isn't a good price.
I know. it's-
It's
Every
one of
time you
those,
went, when I went underneath it, when you heard it was like, okay, and the chief set up cones. As you heard it was gonna go.
yeah, I mean, the chief was so concerned, she actually stayed there until the tree company came. She wouldn't let anyone drive underneath it. She blocked it. I couldn't even go underneath it, so I was like,
So
okay,
It's the price of the shade and clean air we get, right?
that's it. Oh, okay, any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Joyce,
Aye.
Mrs. Joyce, Mrs. Hardwick,
Aye.
Mrs. Mara,
Aye.
Mr. Conrad,
Aye.
Mr. Thompson.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we're gonna open up the public comment again. Again, 3 minutes per person, may be directed to mayor, council members only. And this is reserved for follow-up questions on the topics that was discussed at today's meeting. Please.
Question regarding
Please-
sewer.
Please state your name. and address
Oh,
again,
Jane
please.
Shaveko, 14 East Shore.
Thank
And a year now, it was last fall. that I passed the Fire lane out in front of the median strip where the went through all last winter. You know. Now that it's raining, please come and look. It's flooding again, and pretty soon the weather's gonna get bad. And a lot of people drive through here for fall rentals, going to the park. It just runs down and it's cutting into the street on the south side of the median by the fire lane. And it's not going into a catch basin. You basically run through and splash. And I mentioned that a year ago, and I don't know if anything's ever been addressed.
Well,
since then.
we did flush all those storm sewers, so they're clean, the catch basins. Is it the
No,
land?
it's over here, across the street here, right?
We did this.
Yeah, it's one on the corner, but the way it's gone, it's now
Is it-
turning out and running off the strip into the road.
So is it from, I think it's from ground under disrepair more than it is the storm sewer not handling the water, right? It's because the water's not getting to it because of cars and ruts.
I don't think there is no storms. I think that's
There
what
is
you're
one on
saying.
the end of the median strip and run along there. And I don't know if it needs to be grading, something addressed, but it isn't getting to that catch. And it's progressively getting worse.
Well, then it roads.
We have too
We
many dogs and stuff.
Jane, excuse me. This isn't on topic, but what I'll do is I'll meet with you and you can show me
Okay,
after the meeting.
thank you.
Okay, great.
And my response is, difference is, I'm protected with a dog, if the dog is barking at my fence. Or. To answer your question. Difference is with chickens, and if they're next, to the fence, I'm not protected with chicken running at large or barking and that, such as if it's an animal or a stray cat, you can have address police department, who's going to chickens.
Running
in
in
the
the park.
permit. That's where we have to do the sketches.
Okay, well, thank you. We'll address that at the next meeting. Thank you. Any other comments? Okay. Okay, now, so for that, so do I have a motion to go into executive session? It's to discuss pending litigation and let us say, legislative action may occur after this executive session. So moved. Joyce makes a motion. Have a second. Mrs. Mara seconds. Roll call, please.
Mr. Joyce,
Aye.
Mrs. Joyce, Mrs. Hardwick,
Aye.
Mrs. Mara, Mr. Conrad.
Aye.
Mr. Thompson.
Okay. Okay. Do I have a motion to come out of executive session, please?
So moved.
Mr.
Hang on,
Joyce
hang on.
makes a motion.
Yes, Mike.
No, he's got to get it.
So get one on here.
All right, go ahead.
Do I have a second? Mrs. Mara seconds. Roll call, please.
Mr. Joyce,
Aye.
Mrs. Joyce, Mrs. Hardwick,
Aye.
Mrs. Mara, Mr. Conrad,
Aye.
Mr. Thompson.
Okay, thank you. Okay. So now, do I have a motion to adjourn? Mr. Conrad makes a motion. Mrs. Hardwick seconds. Roll call, please.
Mr. Joyce. Mrs. Joyce, Mrs. Hardwick,
Aye.
Mrs. Mara, Mr. Conrad.
Aye.
Mr. Thompson.
Aye.
Thank you. Our next meeting will be Tuesday, September 19th, 2023 at 6:30 PM. Thank you. Have a good evening.
I think my laptop